Urgently, the Ukrainian armed forces dismantled the enemy, strikes from all sides. Putin makes an emergency statement. Blackout in Moscow. Russia's capital was instantly left helpless. Zaluzhnyi burst in. The end of the war on Ukraine's terms. Weapons for the Ukrainian armed forces are arriving via unexpected routes. Partners have prepared a mega surprise for Kyiv. Denmark's plan worked, and the Kremlin is nervously scrambling. All this in our episode of Infernal Point. How by the armed forces have finally done it. Jackpot hit. Russians have crumbled deep in the rear of the Russian Federation and at the front. The enemy let their guard down and got what was coming to them. Footage you can't afford to miss. Fierce clearing operation in Kupyansk. Ukrainian defenders have run out of patience. Putin is once again making loud statements about capturing Donbass. The dictator fell for the deception and walked right into a trap. All about this in the following report.
Over 50 fuel and military-industrial infrastructure facilities in Russia have been struck by Ukrainian defense forces this fall, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Journalists have obtained satellite images that show the scale of the Ukrainian armed forces' autumn strikes, confirming the military's data.
We have started producing significantly more drones and also more missiles, meaning that our overall ability to carry out effective airstrikes on Russia has significantly increased.
But the raids on the occupiers do not end there. On the night of December 4th, Ukrainian drones attacked targets in the city of Nevinomysk, according to the governor of Stavropol Krai, Vladimir Vladimirov. According to the Ukrainian monitoring Telegram channel, the Nevinomysk Azot chemical plant was hit. This plant had already been targeted by drone strikes twice this year, on July 25th and June 14th. The city of Suputnik Pokrovska, Myrnohrad, has been almost completely destroyed, reports the Associated Press. The occupiers used aerial bombs weighing up to 500 kilograms, drones and artillery, trying to wipe the city off.
The truly very face of the entire earth. This is what you call a difficult situation?
The situation in Pokrovsk itself remains difficult as before.
We control Pokrovsk. The northern part of Pokrovsk along various roads in the central and southern areas is not under control. Russian military forces, specifically the Russian army, are currently present. There are several hundred Russian saboteurs operating within the area, approximately, and extensive counter-sabotage operations are actively underway to thoroughly clear them out from within the city limits.
In the Kupyansk direction, the enemy continues to receive retaliatory strikes from east.
According to the detailed analysis of radio intercepts and our extensive intelligence, there are still several dozen dangerous saboteurs remaining in the Kupyansk area, operating covertly. And they continue to be searched for, found, and neutralized. And
at the same time, Russian dictator Putin declared that he would capture Donetsk and Luhansk regions no matter what, and added that for 8 years he watched as the self-proclaimed DNR and LNR were allegedly being destroyed.
The Russians won't feel ashamed. But for those people in Europe or America who believed, or even made a show of believing, that we had been bombing Donbass for 8 years, it would at the very least be uncomfortable, because people would start laughing at them in the Organization of Poor Nations. How exactly did Ukraine bomb for 8 years, and where were they bombing? And
the one who is actually destroying the temporarily occupied territories and their population is Russia. Some Ukrainian children deported from the temporarily occupied territories are being sent by the aggressor country to military camps in North Korea. This was stated by Katerina Rashevska, an expert from the Regional Center for Human Rights, during hearings in the US Senate. So far, 165 military camps have been documented where Ukrainian children are being militarized and Russified.
A massive blackout has hit key regions of the Russian Federation, and Moscow is barely containing the panic. The enemy has found itself trapped. Ports, oil refineries, and critical infrastructure cannot withstand the strikes. Everything is collapsing one after another. Even elite units that once seemed invincible are suffering devastating losses. The Akhmat regiment is in complete disarray. The enemy's air defense is no longer working as it used to, and the chaos is becoming obvious to everyone. The hottest details about this and more are already in the report. Russia is in flames and darkness. There is a blackout in the Moscow region, and dozens of residential buildings have been left without power. In darkness, Russians are sitting. This is not the first time. A month ago, there was a large-scale power outage in the Moscow region. Well, the good drones did a good job, although the occupation authorities, of course,
There was nothing like this in 2022 or 2023, and not in 2024 either.
And now it's a good morning in the Krasnodar region. Local residents are reporting explosions in Tuapse. The Ilsky oil refinery and one of the local ports may have been hit.
And at night, drones lit up the oil depot in the Orel region.
Now that's chemicals, too. It's burning. I don't know who that is. Oh, damn, look at it blaze.
And this is the standard way to start the day or end the evening in Russia. What once seemed very far away is becoming more and more realistic.
The year 25. This is a record year for the number of drones over the territory of the Russian Federation. Along with drones, missiles are also starting to come in. These include small-sized missiles, as well as, for example, the long Neptune D. There are also Flamingo missiles.
Chechnya has also come under the crosshairs of UAVs. Local residents report that as a result of the attack, the FSB building was damaged, and the Akhmat unit base in Gontermesi was also shelled.
This is a certain specific element, a powerful force element, which plays its significant role and occupies its prominent place within the broader Russian hierarchy. And not the last one either. Destruction, reduction, devastation. This is very important for this direction. We will find each and every one of them. And this is a very important message, so that every Kadyrovite who came to Ukraine understands that one way or another he will be found. We will find Russian generals, destroy them, blow them up. Of course, in Akhadorovka, we'll just smear him against the wall with another drone and even send him a package from Nova Poshta with a piece of salo.
Let us remind you that on the night of November 25th, Ukraine attacked the aircraft repair plant named after Baryev in Taganrog, which is capable of modernizing and servicing two 95 MS aircraft. As a result, the occupiers lost the ability to further operate this aviation. As a result of the strike, two aircraft, the A-60 and the A-100LL, were destroyed.
As a direct and unfortunate consequence of this devastating strike, two specific and highly valuable aircraft identified as the A-60 and the A-100LL were completely destroyed. It is crucial to note that despite their existence, neither of these aircraft had ever been successfully brought to any fully operational condition, meaning they were not ready for active deployment or use. The catastrophic destruction of these particular aircraft, therefore, essentially and definitively puts a complete and irreversible end to the entire ambitious aviation program, specifically the Advanced Laser Aviation Program, which was a significant strategic initiative of the Russian Federation. As of today, with the destruction of the aircraft, Russia simply no longer has it. With the loss of the A-100LL, the possibility of continuing these ongoing experimental stages to create something truly new vanishes entirely. Although, to be honest, the A-100, the new generation of the A-50, was already technically and technologically outdated compared to Western counterparts.
This is just a small part of where drones have recently been flying, striking military and critical infrastructure targets on Russian territory. Of course, after each attack, the Russian Ministry of Defense reports that most of the drones were shot down. Yet, for some reason, after the phrase, "all targets have been eliminated," Russian Telegram channels are flooded with dozens of videos showing fires. The reason is obvious: poor air defense performance.
Russia has always had problems with air defense. Even in the USSR, it was never fully covered. The airspace was never completely secured. Even though the USSR at that particular time possessed far more extensive capabilities in this crucial area. That is precisely why Russia subsequently inherited a truly vast territory, an immense airspace with numerous significant blind spots. These are critical gaps through which, of course, various offensive weapons can quite easily and effectively pass through.
The armed forces of Ukraine have already brought the southern part of Russia to the brink of a blackout, so Putin's capital could soon be plunged into complete darkness as well.
Urgently, Zaluzhnyi is returning. Statements that Ukrainians have long been waiting for. After these words, everything will change. A new scenario for ending the war. This strategy of the former commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine is making Moscow nervous. A determination that takes your breath away. Could the turning point be about to come? The first details, don't miss what's next.
Russia is trying to exhaust Ukraine and destroy it from within. And political illusions about reconciliation could end in internal conflict. This is written by Ukraine's ambassador to the United Kingdom, Valery Zaluzhnyi. In his column for the publication Liga.net, the former commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, after a long silence and working in foggy Albion, appears to have returned not only to the information space but has also physically come back to Ukraine. After the dismissal of the head of the president's office, Andriy Yermak, and the unstable political situation, it seems that President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky has played his trump card. This is the return of the former commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine.
For example, quickly bringing Zaluzhnyi back from London would immediately strengthen, so to speak, Ukraine's overall position. And to a large extent, Zaluzhnyi is sitting in London as an ambassador. Well, as far as I understand, precisely for such a moment when it becomes necessary. Some kind of consolidation in the face of, so to speak, an external threat. And the external threat here lies precisely in the instability of the US position regarding this war.
In his recently published column, Zaluzhnyi noted that a quick peace would definitely mean only a crushing defeat and the loss of independence. He suggests focusing on the idea of a ceasefire. And in his opinion, final peace agreements with Russia are possible only if there are 100% security guarantees.
Such security guarantees could do Ukraine's accession to NATO, the deployment of nuclear weapons on Ukrainian territory, or the stationing of a large military contingent capable of countering Russia. However, this is not being discussed today. And given both the technological and doctrinal unpreparedness of any NATO member country or any other, except for Russia, Ukraine, and China, this issue fundamentally cannot be considered.
After Russia failed to physically conquer Ukraine, the former commander-in-chief is convinced that the Kremlin, in addition to the military component, has focused on undermining Ukrainian society from within, the so-called strategy of attrition.
The strategy of attrition has its decisive blow. And if for the enemy this means bringing the country to collapse through military actions, as well as the political and economic situation, then what is it? The decisive blow in this situation. If we recall history, the answer is obvious. It's a civil war. Yes, this is exactly the decisive blow that Russia systematically seeks to achieve by implementing the strategy of attrition.
According to Zaluzhnyi, freezing the conflict along the front line is currently one of the most likely scenarios for ending the war. But the truce will not last long.
And the intermediate stage may involve freezing hostilities along the front line, which I currently consider to be the most likely scenario. Whether someone likes it or not, these are the objective realities and factors that are taking shape both on the battlefield, economically, socially, and politically.
Zaluzhny's return to Ukraine and his article are definitely a signal to Ukrainian society and the whole world that the struggle continues both diplomatically and militarily. And no one will agree to Russia's terms.
For the first time in history, New Zealand and Australia are funding the purchase of weapons from the United States. For Ukraine, the Pearl Initiative is gaining unprecedented momentum. The Union of Friends of Ukraine is becoming stronger and stronger, and the armed forces of Ukraine are reaching a new level of power. The world is watching, Ukraine is triumphant, and partners are acting decisively, breaking all stereotypes. What happens next? We'll talk about that in just a moment.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
NATO has confirmed its readiness to increase assistance to Kyiv. If we don't do this now, it will cost us much more in the future. Partners will supply Ukraine with weapons under the Pearl program for approximately $1 billion.
About $1 billion in additional support has been confirmed by our allies to support our army through the Pearl program. 5 more countries have announced this as well. But for me, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, a country at war, it was truly important to feel this unity and determination right now.
Among the commitments of the allied countries to allocate funding, one of the key elements of the meeting was the discussion of sanctions and the need to synchronize sanction packages.
At the moment, we are on track. We need about $4 billion by this time of year. Starting from August, $1 billion per month, and right now we have $4 billion. So we still have some work to do in December. I am optimistic, cautiously optimistic, that we will also close this gap. December.
At the beginning of August, the US and NATO launched a new mechanism to support Ukraine through the Priorities Ukraine Initiative. Requirements abbreviated as PEARL. NATO countries, except for the US, make voluntary financial contributions for the supply of American weapons and technology to Ukraine.
PEARL is an initiative under which European countries purchase American weapons and transfer them to Ukraine through NATO, to help Ukraine put an end to this war. If there's one thing we learned during Trump's presidency, it's the use of force to achieve peace. Peace is achieved through strength, not through harsh statements or threatening gestures. It is achieved through strength when you have real capabilities that your adversaries respect.
PEARL allows for coordinating contributions, speeding up procurement, and delivering to the front lines more quickly those items that cannot be replaced by European alternatives. The Netherlands was the first to join the initiative in the fall, allocating €500 million for the purchase of Patriot systems and other air defense equipment. Denmark, Norway, and Sweden funded ammunition for HIMARS and other critical supplies. Germany and Canada joined them. Belgium, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Iceland, and Luxembourg have announced their readiness to join the 5th funding package. Australia and New Zealand are expanding their support. The countries will provide PEARL military aid packages worth $63 million and $8.7 million.
Now, even New Zealand and Australia, which are not NATO members but are close partners of the alliance through the Indo-Pacific region, have also now made commitments. This is truly great news. And this gives us a steady flow of weapons to Ukraine from the necessary US stockpiles.
While many international allies are actively joining in to help Ukraine, Italy has, however, made the decision to withdraw from the significant PEARL program.
It would be premature to participate in the NATO program for purchasing American weapons for Ukraine in light of the peace negotiations. If we reach an agreement and the fighting stops, weapons will no longer be needed. Instead, other things will be needed, such as security guarantees.
This statement was the first open signal of a change in the government's course. Giorgia Meloni. Hungary is also against participating in weapons procurement. At the same time, the Netherlands will provide €500 million, Norway $250, and Canada $200. Poland is allocating $100 million for Patriot missiles.
The fate of Europe is at stake. We all want this war to end, and we welcome peace efforts, but it is very important that the result is a just and lasting peace for Ukraine.
Germany has not stayed on the sidelines either. All of this money will be spent on weapons for Ukraine.
The federal government is very proud that, together with our friends in Poland and Norway, we can form another large package that is needed to support Ukraine. $500 million is a significant amount. Germany is providing $200 million of that.
Let us recall that the first 2 military aid packages for Ukraine, as part of them, missiles for the Patriot air defense system and the HIMARS multiple launch rocket system were included, which helped our defenders on the battlefield and protected Ukrainian cities from Russian missiles. Meanwhile, Ukraine has requested an additional €1 billion for the winter period to compensate for the reduction in supplies from the United States in previous months. Orel remains one of the key mechanisms for assisting Ukraine, but its future directly depends on political decisions, allies, and negotiations for a ceasefire.
Europe is raising the stakes. Denmark is taking a step that no one expected. Hundreds of millions of dollars are being directed to Ukraine to strengthen its army and the latest defense technologies. This decision instantly changes the balance of power. The Kremlin is already talking about a critical moment. Copenhagen senses Russia's fear and is acting in a new way. More details about the partners' plan, which has become a wall for Ukraine, in the report coming up in just a moment.
A small country, but one of Ukraine's most important partners in the war against Russia.
Denmark will finance the purchase of Ukrainian-made military equipment to supply the armed forces of Ukraine.
The second batch of F-16 fighter jets has arrived in Ukraine from Denmark.
We are currently developing a whole range of support programs that will, in fact, start working immediately in 2026.
Just in November, Denmark approved its 28th military aid package worth $217 million.
Which country has helped Ukraine in proportion to its own gross domestic product? 2.9% of GDP. And it should be noted that out of the 10 billion in aid provided to Ukraine, 9 billion is military technical assistance.
The country is using the so-called Danish model of support. The assistance is built not only on supplying weapons, but also on investments in Ukraine's defense industry.
It is precisely the Danish model that enables the modernization of Ukraine's defense industrial complex and the production of its own equipment, munitions, and logistical support for the armed forces of Ukraine.
The next step is joint production. The Ukrainian and Danish governments have agreed on projects to create long-range drones and missiles outside of Ukraine.
This is to neutralize such a threat from the occupying country in the event that a drone assembly facility is destroyed. And this concerns strike drones, fixed-wing drones, and reconnaissance drones. The production was located on the territory of Denmark. Moreover, this is about scaling up primarily strike drones with a target range of over 1,500 kilometers.
For the first time in NATO, preparations have begun in southern Denmark for the construction of a Ukrainian plant for the production of rocket fuel. And this is already a real step toward cooperation.
This refers to a plant for the production of solid fuel for the Ukrainian ballistic missile, the Flamingo missile. It should be noted that Denmark has announced that this plant will begin producing solid fuel as early as 2026. This is an unprecedented form of military technical assistance which brings it to a new level. All the efforts of the Russian Federation to destroy the Ukrainian defense industry specifically involved in the Ukrainian ballistic program.
In addition to investments and joint production, the European Union continues to directly assist Ukraine. They are supplying armored vehicles, artillery, and ammunition from their own stockpiles. Or they purchase equipment specifically for Ukraine.
Denmark financed the purchase of more than 20 self-propelled artillery howitzers for the needs of the Ukrainian armed forces, Caesar howitzers. Denmark was one of the first countries to provide Ukraine with F-16 fighter jets. In addition, portable Stinger anti-aircraft missile systems and missiles for air defense systems.
Copenhagen is also actively supporting Ukraine on its path to joining the EU and promises to do everything possible to make it happen.
It is abundantly clear that Ukraine truly belongs not only to the broader European family, but also to the vital transatlantic NATO alliance. We are actively and thoughtfully considering how best to strategically move forward.
Denmark helps not just with words, but with actions. This is more than just assistance. This is a partnership that is a game changer, creates opportunities, and lays the foundation for future defense.
The Danish side is doing everything possible right now to strengthen our country's defense capabilities. Moreover, they are providing not only military technical assistance, but also, accordingly, macroeconomic support.
That's all for now. This was me, Darina Hutsakalo. Even more scorching news in our next episode. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon.